I didn't check my phone until it was almost too late. It was a Wednesday. I remember because I'd just finished watching the news. Same anchor, same bad weather report, same feeling that the world keeps spinning whether you're ready or not. I was 63 years old, retired from 31 years in civil engineering, and I was sitting in my recliner with a cup of decaf that had gone cold an hour ago. My wife had passed 4 years before. The house was quiet the way a house gets when it stops being a home and starts being a place you just sleep in. My phone was on the kitchen counter. I almost didn't hear it buzzing. My son had called 3 times. Not my son, my daughter. She'd called from my son-in-law's phone. That's the first thing that struck me as wrong. Before I even listened to the voicemail, she had her own phone. She always called from her own number. Always. I pressed play. Her voice was barely above a whisper. She said, Dad, please, I need you to come. I can't talk loud. Please just come. That was all. I didn't call her back. I didn't call my son-in-law. I grabbed my jacket off the hook by the door and I drove. My daughter had been married for 3 years. Her husband was the kind of man who made excellent first impressions. Firm handshake, looked you in the eye, opened doors for people. When she brought him home the first time, I thought, this is a good one. This is someone who'll take care of her. I was wrong about that. I started being wrong about it around month 4 of the marriage, when my daughter stopped calling as often. Then she stopped coming to Sunday dinners. Then she started flinching when her phone rang if her husband was in the room. I said something to her once, about 8 months in. We were alone in the driveway after Thanksgiving, and I told her she didn't seem like herself. She smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, and said she was just tired from work. I let it go. I told myself it wasn't my place. She was an adult. She'd made her choice. That's one of the things I'll carry for the rest of my life. That moment in the driveway, that I let it go. They lived 40 minutes from me, in a house that had been purchased with money from my son-in-law's family. His mother lived 20 minutes away. She was in that house 3, sometimes 4 times a week. I knew that much from the few times my daughter and I still managed to talk on the phone. She never said it like a complaint. She always said it neutral, like she was reporting the weather. His mother came by again today, like it was just a fact of life, like rain. I drove the whole 40 minutes without the radio on, just the sound of the road and my own breathing. At some point I realized my hands were shaking on the wheel, and I didn't try to stop them. I just kept driving. The lights were on in the house when I pulled up. All the lights, living room, upstairs hallway, the lamp in the front bedroom. It was 10:47 at night. I knocked on the door. My son-in-law's mother answered. She was in her early 60s, hair pinned back, dressed like she hadn't planned on going anywhere. She looked at me the way you look at someone who's shown up at the wrong address. She's not available, she said. Not hello. Not what brings you by. She said she's not available. I said, my daughter called me. I need to see her. She's resting. She didn't feel well earlier. She's fine now. I'd like to hear that from her. She shifted her weight in the doorway, not stepping aside, not inviting me in, just filling the space. I think it's best if you come back tomorrow, she said. It's late, and she really does need her rest. I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about being polite. I thought about all the ways a man my age has been taught to keep the peace, to not make things worse, to trust that people mean well. I thought about my daughter's voice on that voicemail. I can't talk loud. Ma'am, I said, I'm going to see my daughter. I stepped past her into the house. She said something behind me, raised her voice, said I had no right, said she was going to call her son. I kept walking, through the entryway, past the kitchen, calling my daughter's name. The downstairs was empty. I went to the bottom of the stairs and called up. Nothing. I went a hallway, was bright, 3 doors. 2 open, 1 closed. I knocked on the closed one and said her name again, softer this time. I heard something. A sound that wasn't quite a response, but wasn't nothing either. A shifting, a breath. I tried the handle. Locked, sweetheart, I said. It's Dad, I'm right here. Can you unlock the door? Silence. Then the softest sound I have ever heard in my life. The click of a lock turning. She was sitting on the floor between the bed and the wall. That's where I found her. On the floor, knees to her chest, still in her work clothes from that morning. Her left arm had a bruise that ran from the wrist to the elbow, purple and swollen. Her face was dry. She'd been crying long enough that there was nothing left. I sat down on the floor next to her, right there on the carpet. I didn't say anything for a moment. I just put my hand on her shoulder and I stayed. How long? I said. She didn't answer right away. Then she said a while. How long is a while? Since maybe 6 months in. 2.5 years. She had been living like this for 2.5 years, and I had been 40 minutes away drinking cold decaf and watching the evening news. Downstairs, I could hear her mother-in-law on the phone. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the tone. Controlled, urgent, the voice of a woman managing a situation. I looked at my daughter's arm. "We need to get that looked at. It's fine. It's not fine. He didn't mean to hurt." I said it quietly, not harshly. "I'm not asking for an explanation right now. I'm just asking you to stand up and come with me." She looked at me for the first time since I'd come in. She looked at me the way a person looks when they've been told something impossible, like they want to believe it but they've learned not to. "She's going to try to stop us," she said. "I know. She'll call him. He'll come home. Then we need to move." We were at the top of the stairs when the front door opened. Not my son-in-law. His mother had called someone else first. Her brother, a man I'd seen twice at family events. He was younger than me and broader across the shoulders, and he stood at the bottom of the stairs like he'd been stationed there. "You need to leave," he said, to me, like my daughter wasn't standing right next to me. "We're both leaving," I said. "Together. She's not going anywhere tonight. This is a family matter." I almost said I am her family. I almost said a lot of things. Instead, I took out my phone and I dialed 911. Right there on the stairs, with everyone watching. I told the dispatcher I was at the address, that my daughter had visible injuries, that people were physically blocking our exit, and that I needed officers to respond. That changed things. The brother stepped back. Not all the way, but back. My son-in-law's mother went very still and very quiet in the living room doorway. My daughter gripped my arm like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. The officers arrived in 11 minutes, 2 of them. Young, professional, calm. They spoke to my daughter separately, which I'd expected. They photographed her arm, which I hadn't expected, not so quickly, not so efficiently. One of them asked if she wanted to press charges that night, or if she wanted to file a report and decide later. She looked at me. I said, "It's your choice. I'll support whatever you decide." She told them she wanted to file the report. She wanted it on record. She didn't want to decide the rest of it tonight. That was the bravest thing I'd ever seen her do. We drove to the hospital after. Not because the officers made us, because I wasn't satisfied with "it's probably fine." The ER was half full and fluorescent lit, in the way that ERs are at 11:30 on a Wednesday. A nurse with reading glasses on a beaded chain looked at my daughter's arm, then looked at me, then looked at my daughter again without any judgment in her face. Just assessment. The bruising was severe, no fracture, thankfully. But she was prescribed something for inflammation, and given instructions I made sure I understood, because I knew my daughter would be too wrung out to retain them. We sat in plastic chairs while they processed the paperwork. My daughter had her hands wrapped around a cup of terrible coffee from a machine in the hall. She wasn't crying, she was past that. "He's going to say I fell," she said. "Let him say it. His mother is going to say you broke in, that you forced your way into her son's house." I stepped past her at the door. I didn't touch her or break anything. The officers can speak to that. She was quiet for a while. Then, "I should have called you sooner." I didn't tell her she should have. I didn't tell her it was all right either, because it wasn't, not entirely. Some part of me was going to sit with that for a long time, the 2.5 years I didn't push hard enough. But that wasn't what she needed to hear right now. "You called when you called," I said. "That's what matters." She stayed with me that night. I put her in the back bedroom that used to be hers when she was in high school. Still had the same white dresser, the same curtain pattern her mother had picked out. I made up the bed with clean sheets while she was in the shower, and I put a glass of water on the nightstand, and I felt like I was moving in slow motion through the most important night of my life. My son-in-law called my phone 4 times before midnight. I didn't answer. At 12:43 he sent a text message that said, "You had no right. That's my house and my wife, and you had no right to take her." I read it. I didn't respond. I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter, and I sat at the table for a long time in the dark. The same way I'd sat for 4 years since my wife died, except this time the quiet felt different. This time there was someone else breathing in this house. The next morning I called my attorney before I called anyone else. That part I want to be clear about, because a lot of people in my position might have called their son-in-law, or called a mutual friend, or tried to handle it like a family dispute that could be ironed out over a conversation. I want to be clear. I did not do that. I called the man who had handled my wife's estate and my own affairs for 20 years, and I told him everything that had happened, and I asked him what my daughter's options were. Her options were better than she thought. There was the police report from the night before. There were the hospital records. There were, as it turned out, text messages on her phone, exchanges with her husband that her attorney would later describe in court as a documented pattern of coercive control. My daughter had kept them. She hadn't known why she was keeping them. Some quiet, stubborn part of her had known. The process was not fast. I won't pretend it was simple or clean or that it happened in a week. It took months. There were hearings. There were motions. There was a period of about 3 weeks where my son-in-law's attorney made an argument that I had unlawfully entered the home and attempted to alienate his client's spouse, that I was the aggressor. My daughter's attorney dismantled that argument so thoroughly in the response filing that I almost felt sorry for the man who had to make it. Almost. My son-in-law's mother, it turned out, had been present for at least 2 previous incidents. This came out in discovery. She had not called anyone. She had not encouraged her son to get help. She had encouraged my daughter, in a text message that was recovered from my daughter's phone, to be a better wife and stop provoking him. That message cussed significantly when the final hearing came. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday in late October. I drove my daughter to the courthouse. She wore a dark blue blazer and her mother's pearl earrings, which she'd asked to borrow from the jewelry box I'd kept exactly where my wife left it. I waited in the hall while she went in with her attorney. When she came back out, she didn't look like a woman celebrating. She looked like a woman who had just put down something very heavy after carrying it for a very long time. We went to lunch at a diner a few blocks from the courthouse. Nothing fancy. The kind of place with laminated menus and a waitress who calls everyone Han. My daughter ordered eggs and toast, breakfast food at 1 in the afternoon, and she ate every bite, which was more than I'd seen her eat in a single sitting in months. "What do you want to do now?" I asked. She thought about it. Not a quick, reflexive answer. She actually sat there and thought, the way you think when someone is asking you something you've been afraid to answer. "I want to find an apartment," she said, "somewhere with good light. I've been living in rooms with bad light for 3 years. "Okay," I said. "And I want to get a dog, okay? And I want to come to Sunday dinner again." "If that's still, I said. "That's always still." She looked out the window for a moment. Outside, a woman was walking a terrier that had its nose to every crack in the sidewalk. The October light was the kind that makes everything look like a photograph. "I'm sorry I didn't call sooner, Dad." "You called," I said. "You called and I came." She nodded, not like she fully believed it yet, like maybe she was just starting to. She found her apartment 6 weeks later. 3rd floor, south-facing windows, a small balcony where the afternoon light came in at an angle that made the whole room go gold around 4 o'clock. She got a dog too, a 3-year-old beagle mix from the county shelter, a stubborn, loud, absolutely ridiculous animal who knocked over her water glass twice on the first day and then slept on her feet all night. She named him Tuesday. I asked her why Tuesday. She said, "Because I want every week to have something worth getting to." I drove home that evening thinking about my wife, about how she used to say that the difference between a hard life and a good life is sometimes just whether you have somebody willing to show up. I didn't say it right, the way she always did, but I was thinking it. My daughter called me that Sunday. From her own phone, her own number, her own voice, no whisper, no background tension, no measured neutrality. She called because she wanted to talk, and we talked for an hour about nothing important, the dog, a show she was watching, a neighbor who played piano badly but with tremendous enthusiasm at 10 in the morning. When we hung up, the house was quiet again. But different. It had been quiet like emptiness before. Now it was quiet like rest. The kind of quiet that comes when something that needed to happen has finally happened, and everybody who needed to be home is home. I went to bed at a reasonable hour. I slept.